Hello, welcome back to the Spotter. Today I've got a slightly different setup and a bit of a ropey voice. And the reason for that is because I went to Fort Park yesterday. I'm a big kid. So excuse the fact that I sound like I've been out on the piss getting drunk all weekend. That's not the case. Today I said I was going to talk about the new setup. It's not much really, but I've kind of adjusted. Oh, sorry, I banged that. Kind of adjusted the setup a little bit where I'm actually using my iPhone camera at the minute before eventually getting maybe something like a decent camera at some point down the line to improve, obviously, this process and this setup as well. And behind me, you've got, again, the nice warm lighting. So hopefully the iPhone camera is better. For a while, I was thinking to myself, I want to move across to using my iPhone camera because it makes sense. They're pretty decent, and it's a good entry point rather than getting a camera straight away. All will come in time, I'm sure. So yeah, that's why it looks slightly different and hopefully better quality. And I would know that because I would be editing and reviewing this, wouldn't I? Like a good host. But anyway, I hope everyone is well. It's been very nice and warm in this country again. I am crying out for the winter. I don't know about anyone else, but you know, when people talk about like the SAD, I think it's seasonal depression disorder or something like that, or something similar to that. Although I said sad and I didn't get the middle word, so correct me. I don't actually know what that stands for. Um, but the seasonal change in moods, I don't really get that, and I'm the opposite. I can't stand summer in this country. Like I cannot stand it at all. I The minute we get a bit of heat in this country, I am that typical person that's like, can't wait for winter, bring on Christmas. Like genuinely, that's my favorite time of year. So let me know if anyone else is like that. But I wanted to jump on today because, well, again, they're weekly, pretty much. I am away next weekend, but I wanted to get on to make sure that I record this one because I think it was quite important. So obviously I've spoken about, and again, this podcast is about not just getting guests on to talk about their stories and experiences, but it's also about, me driving the direction and journey of this for myself through my experiences in life, with my parents, my family, relationships, things I've been through, things my family have been through, as and when they allow me, I'm allowed to talk about those things, if you get what I mean. Um, Draw upon those experiences, and hopefully it helps the people that are listening understand that they're not alone. They perhaps share a certain experience or situation journey with me, um, just to show that we all go through shit in life, um, and that it's actually when we come and talk to each other and share these with each other that it helps us along the journey. And this is something I wish I had back in the day. Like I said back at the start of the podcast, I wish I had this outlet to listen to and feel like I wasn't alone when I felt very alone. Um, on Friday, I had, and I was going to bring this subject up anyway about dealing with loss, dealing with grief. Because I lost my dad, as you probably would have known if you listened to the episode. I lost my dad in 2021 to COPD. Again, I can't remember exactly what that means, but as much as dad passed away because of that, everything that happened before in his life ultimately led up to this. He died relatively young. He was 63. I think he was 63, literally about a week away from his birthday. The guy had obviously struggled with alcohol addiction all his life, pretty much, since maybe 14, 15. That's what he told me when he had his first drink. And again, sorry, I feel very ropey in my voice, but I'm trying to push through. So he struggled with that from a very early age because of his father, the influence of his dad, and being around that environment. I think his relationship with his father, obviously I wasn't there, but it was very mixed. And I think that what came after was just a way of coping with his situation, his life, the fact that he never felt good enough to his dad, which must have been horrendous. And all throughout his life, that addiction got progressively worse, in and out of rehab, could never, fully recover, could never hold down a consistent career, was a very talented guy and was wasted. And I think deep down he knew it as well. So he'd always drill into me about, pushing myself, pursuing anything I wanted to, not being afraid to take steps. I feel like he was almost giving off what he wanted from his dad when he was younger that he never got. So I had the opposite, which is, I'm forever grateful for. But yeah, so that was that's kind of skimming over his background, but the guy was troubled. He was really troubled, and it was it was hard over the years seeing him deteriorate really badly. Like, for example, in 2014, and I always go back to this period because this is how I remember him in his like maybe like peak, if that makes sense. 2014 family holiday. I remember going off, and I think we were down to the coast, me, mum, nan, and dad, and yeah, there were just moments of going out swimming and just enjoying our time together. But then it would always still go back to these situations where I'd look at him and think like, oh, you look great, you look well to put together, if that makes sense, relatively healthy. Him and mum had been had probably been on at that period in time like a good 2-3 year stint together of like consistent. I don't even know what the term is, like good feelings towards each other. There wasn't many rows or bickering because they were very on and off. And that was like the period that I remember really fondly thinking like that was like the perfect family at that time in my life. So 2012, 13, 14 and 15 were like, those were the years where I had a glimpse of like what my perfect family would have looked like. It didn't last, sadly. But I was saying all good things come to an end, but it didn't last. Obviously wasn't meant to last at that point in time. And then from that point onwards, mum and dad never, I don't think they ever really. I think they had like maybe one more stint where they all got back together in like 2016 to 2017 period, or just before that, and that was it. After that, that was they officially that they'd kind of like finished their relationship. They'd remained amicable and things like that. And I'd be back and forth to dad on weekends and stuff like that. So that's how the relationship carried on. But yeah, I always go back to that period because that was like my example of like that's what could have been in life. That's what my glimpse of like a normal family life would have been. So yeah, that was the peak sort of period. Since then, or since that period up until 2021 when he died. So you think that's a 6-7 year period, and he deteriorated massively. I think he really let himself it's like he accepted what he was doing to himself, and he just allowed it to get worse. It was really, really hard to see unfold over the years because in my head, I thought to myself, I'm seeing a quite clear decline and downfall of a person that I love so deeply and dearly, and I can't do anything about it because this guy's already decided that that's his life. If he wanted to have changed, if he wanted to stop, if he wanted to, rid him of his addiction, and it's not as easy as just being like, well, just quit. It's not like it's like an illness when that's been a part of you since childhood. That is half of you, and I get that. I didn't get it at the time, but I do now. I really do, and I struggled so much throughout the years. Going to visit him, maintaining my relationship with him, knowing that he was in my eyes at times how I thought I was like, you're destroying yourself. You have an option to turn your life around and all of this, and you're not doing it. But I didn't understand the deeper reason behind the alcohol addiction and why he saw that as his escape in life. And now I really do truly understand, especially with how, like fucked up and crazy life is in general. I get why people want to escape in moments and seek, I guess, ways of coping. And his way of doing so because of his past was that, and it became him. And I accepted, I especially do now, like I would give anything to have him back. Like, but I accept him. I accepted at the time, it took me a while, but I accepted who he was. We didn't really speak about it, but he never influenced me. He never pushed alcohol on me. I never, ever, ever, ever had, like when typically like lads go with their dads for a beer at a pub. Never in my life did I set foot in a pub and have a beer with my dad. when I came to age. Never did. I remember when I was younger going to lots of pubs and just having a ridiculous memory. But again, it's nice that I've got these comforts, like having bags of mini cheddars and orange juices, going to like British Legions and pubs with him and all his, what I'd call them, like cool friends. And but yeah, we never had that moment of a drink together, or like him buying me my first alcoholic drink. It never happened. I think because he never wanted to push that side of him that had been pushed from his dad onto me, because he knew that wasn't the right thing to do. He wanted to give me, and he had done, and I thank him so much for this. Like, he gave me the best out of what he could. He gave me the best life he could, for what he had to give. And I'm so grateful for my life because of him. And as much as people would be like, oh, what about this? What if he, oh, if only, honestly, couldn't care less. Like, he was my dad. I loved him and love him so dearly. And I would give anything to have him back. And, talking about his background up to this point, it's hard listening to that back and replaying it in my head, especially recently, because, and it really compelled me to do this episode today on this subject, because on Friday, I had a day where the day prior, a song came on and it reminded me of him because he played it to me. It was actually, if anyone listening knows it, it's John and Vangelis. So John Anderson from Yes, and Vangelis, I think he's a composer. The Chariots of Fire and a lot of the, what is it? Is it Blade Runner? Yeah, a lot of the Blade Runner soundtrack from the 80s. That it was like that film was like a game changer in the way of like CGI back in the day. And they came together to do like a series of albums. And one of the songs, I think it was the album was called like the Friends of Mr. Cairo, and it was called I'll Find My Way Home. Genuinely, go and listen to it and listen to the words. So I played that at his funeral. That was from me to him with the slideshow of his pictures. So that hits hard, that song, because he'd always play that to me when I was younger, and he would cry when it was on. Like, he would tear up. I never really understood why. I don't know if it was because it just hit him deeply. He was a very emotional man, and so am I. That came on Thursday on Spotify just randomly whilst I was at work, and I was like, oh, wow, I didn't expect to hear that. It was obviously on a shuffle, and it hit me. Went home, didn't really think much about it, and then on the Friday, I woke up, started doing my own stuff, and I played it a few more times in the day, and I started getting teary and emotional to myself, but I shut it off. I didn't allow it to come out. So in my head, I was like, okay, that's different. I haven't felt like that for a while. Went to the gym, had a really intense and actually emotional session with one of my best friends. And I went home that night, played the song in the car, and I bawled to myself. I was bawling. Like, I haven't cried like this in years. I don't know where it came from, but it was just flowing. I couldn't stop it. And then I sat in the car when I got home, and I was talking out loud to myself, but to my dad. And obviously, if anyone was walking past, thankfully I live in a cul-de-sac, so no one was walking past thinking, what's he doing? And I was, speaking, being like, I've got so many things I want to say to you. I've got so many things I want to get your advice on. I need you. I want to talk to you, all of this stuff, like almost like yearning for him, like saying, I need you now. This is a moment in my life where I'm calling out for you. And I just could not stop crying. I went in, had some food, messaged Abby, messaged my mate. After that, I was up till midnight because I just could not switch my head off. And I still was tearing up just before I was going to bed. And I was like, you've got to try and calm down, accept that this has happened, and accept that there's something here. And all weekend, I've been ultra emotional. I think it's because I'm still not over it. And I'm tearing up now because, and I think it's important to show this. Sorry. It's weird doing this in front of a camera because it just feels odd. As much as it's been nearly 4 years since he passed away, I don't think I've ever really sat and deeply thought about it. I had moments after where, and this is kind of the topic of the podcast I wanted to get out here, that it's okay to grieve years on, and it's okay to deal with loss in different ways. And how do we deal with loss? Because I don't think I ever really sat down and acknowledged that he had left. He'd gone on into, no matter what you think, it could be second life. He's just passed away, died, that's it. Or his soul's, I don't know what people believe in. So, this isn't me. I have no knowledge of what happens after death. So I don't know, who knows what's coming next. But I don't think I really sat down, because I remember when it happened, I'm still pretty, it's fresh in the memory. I'm not going to go through what happened on the day, but just put it this way: me and a couple of members of the family were with him until he took his last breath, which was fucking hard to see, and that stays with you for life. So if anyone else has been through that, heart goes out to you. Honestly, it's something that I will never shake, that image. And I'm grateful Abby was with me to support me for that. She was there with me, but I'm so sorry that she had to see that. And I don't think since that day, I remember I had a week off work, and I was really, I was hyper like, I don't know, not even hyper, like I was really like yearning for like love and affection. Like I wanted to be with Abby. I didn't want to be with anyone else. So I was craving that like love, affection, attention from her. Because obviously, I'd in my head, I'd think I'd lost my dad, like my best friend, the person that would give me that attention in different ways. So I was yearning from the, obviously mum, different relationship, but because no matter what anyone says, I think that the relationship with a father and a mother is completely different, obviously depending on your gender as well. And I don't think I ever truly, I had the week off, and then I remember literally 2 days after, I was like, okay, I'm getting back to the gym. I'm getting in. I've got to get in. And I talk about this with a lot of my friends, actually. When things happen in your life, I think you go back to the things that bring you the most comfort. Obviously, my partner, and the next thing to me, what was the thing that got me through dark times in the first place? Training. So I was like, I need to get back to the gym. And people were obviously aware of what had happened. And, they want to come up to you and talk to you. And I was pretending like nothing had happened. I was just getting in, cracking on. Because in my head, I was like, okay, cool. This has happened. And it's happened just before I'm about to start my prep for my first ever competitive season. That hit me hard. And I was like, cool, this becomes even more important now. You've got to go and crack on and do what you're meant to do. So I was just on autopilot. I did that, got through my season in 2022, won my first show. And that was extremely emotional because I felt like he was in the crowd watching me, but he wasn't. But I had that image of him, and all I could see when I was on that stage, and I remember this is my favorite ever show I've done. Obviously, I won. And actually, you might be able to see. No, you probably can't. But the trophy's in the background somewhere up there, just there. Just want to point that out to you. So I remember on the stage looking out, I could just see black. It was literally darkness, and I just pretended that in the middle. And everyone that went there was only a couple of people that went to that one, but they'll tell you that I was just looking straight, because in my head I pictured that straight out there was Dad in the middle, and I was posing for him. I was doing it for him, and he was saying, "Go on, son, that's my boy," all of that sort of shit. So that was a real emotional day. But so again, he passed straight into the gym, finishing the off season, getting ready to start prep. First prep season, holiday next year. Big bulk, new coach, holidays, events, lots of things with friends. The next year, another prep season, new coach, 4 shows this time round, getting to the PCA finals, all different sort of events, proposing to Abby in Edinburgh to finish the year off. And then in this year, and now this year is a big personal growth year, but I've got more time to myself this year, and I have done so far, to think. And I don't think I've actually had that time to sit and grieve properly. I really don't. And it's starting to hit me more now that I'm not recovered. I haven't recovered from it. And it is, I know, you can get people being like, well, yeah, but it's not, it's still really fresh. It's like, well, it's not really. Like, it will be 4 years, October 5th this year. And in my head, I'm like, yeah, it's 4 years. Like, and don't get me wrong, like, for anyone that's dealt with death and has been around it, they're dealing with loss of a loved one. You get to a point where it's easy to talk about them. It's easy to remember things. You can have, jokes. You can make little jokes and, think about things that you did together. Think about the memories, and it'll be fine. But sometimes, like, something just as much as a song or a snippet of a song that can come on, or someone might say a word, and it triggers something in you, and that's what that song's done to me. And now I'm thinking to myself, you're not fully healed. You haven't got over this, and that's okay. I had a complete shed of emotions over the weekend. I cried so much, the most I've done in years. So probably the most I've done since the day and the day that followed of my dad passing. And I feel really good for doing it. I feel like I've allowed myself, I've almost looked at myself and said, with open arms, like, it's fine. Come on, like, open up, do what you need to do. This is big. This is a breakthrough for you. And I've accepted this weekend that it's going to take me a while now to deal with these emotions that are coming into my head. I've got a lot coming up soon, but I'm not going to block these things out. And I wanted to just get on here and say that, for as much as people say to you, it gets easier. It gets easier to deal with. It still hurts, but it will be easier to deal with over time. It's like, yeah, it is. And I'll admit that. It's easier to deal with, but it's not fucking easy dealing with grief and grieving in general for years. Like, having these moments coming back and forth and realizing that the people you love the most, your best friends, your dad, your mum, siblings, grandparents, even pets. Don't care what anyone says. Pets are, just as close as, other family members. But especially people like, your best friends, your dad, whatever, to any of your relationships. When it hits you that you can't have a conversation with them, and there's things that Dad's missed. He's missed my first show. He's missed me do 2 seasons. He's missed me start my personal ventures. He's missed me propose to Abby and get engaged. He's potentially going to, well, potentially he is missing. He's missing next year. Me and Abby move down to the coast. Big life change. All these things. He's missing seeing my mum do so well. That's one of the things that pains me so much. For all the years of struggle and everything she's been through and what she's overcoming in life, it pains me that he's not here to see that. But it's okay. I can allow these feelings to come through. I just have to try in my own way, and gain comfort from what we did have in life, the things that do remind me of him, the moments where I can have things like this. People, you listening and watching, if anyone is going through this, hopefully this brings you comfort, so you know that you're not alone in your grieving journey, and overcoming these feelings and allowing them to pass through. You're allowed. They can pass through. You do not block them off. If you're struggling with loss of someone, allow these feelings to come through, because they need to. I blocked these off, I think, for years. And I'd have moments where I'd message Abby and be like, I'm feeling a bit emotional today. I'm feeling a bit rough. I'm thinking about Dad. I can't do this, that, and the other. And obviously she'll comfort me. She'll tell me certain things. But I think weekends like this, where you're reminded of a person that you've lost, you're reminded of memories, things come up in your head, and then you realize, actually, I need some time to myself mentally. I need time to recover. I need time to get through these emotions, and I need time to recover. Allow them to come through, reflect on them, and then go about your life. You are allowed to do that. You're allowed to breathe, mentally. So yeah, I wanted to come on here and do like this, snippet of how I've felt over this weekend, and show you that, as much as people, and this isn't me like trying to big myself up, but like, I think that a lot of people look at me and think I've got my life together. I'm all sorted, I know where I'm going, all this. I haven't got a fucking clue. I haven't, hate to break it to all you lot, the spotter ain't got a clue. I'm still messed up, in the head, in the sense of like, I'm just going day by day. Bodybuilding is what keeps me sane. That's what keeps me routine. Trust me. Um, I'm not perfect. I'm dealing with these emotions constantly. I'm dealing with thoughts all over the place, anxiety, um, worrying about my choices in life, what's to come, what I've done, what I've said to people. I don't come from a wealthy background. I haven't got X, Y, and Z. I'm just a fairly normal person trying to make it through a crazy life. Hence the podcast. I want to help people. I know what I want to do in life, but I'm just trying to get there. But I feel like to a lot of my friends and family, everyone thinks that Jake's fine, Jake's solid. Don't worry about Jake. You don't have to worry about me, but let me tell you, I am not perfect, and I am not someone that is 100% put together. I have got so many emotions that go in and out of my head and things that I just block out. And I'm starting now to realize there's no need to do that. If I need to grieve about my dad, I'm going to grieve, because I don't think that I have yet. I don't think I properly have. And it feels weird saying that. But if you're out there and you're going through a similar journey, get in touch with me. Tell me, do you feel the same? Do you feel like, even maybe if it's 10 years down the line, 15, 20 years, do you feel like if you've lost someone that you loved so much, that was so important to you, do you feel like you ever really, truly grieve? Does it get that better? Or do you just constantly get these moments where you get flashbacks, memories, things that crop up where it just hits you like a ton of bricks? Like waves of emotions just come through, and you just have to absolutely shed. I use that term to my friend the other day. I was like, I think I've shed. I've just done a big emotional dump, a shed this weekend. So yeah, I think these are bound to be emotions that will crop up again in future. I know they will, but I feel like, what are your ways of dealing with loss? How have you dealt with them? For me, it was getting back into the gym, getting focused, having goals in mind. And every year since 2021, I've had things that I've focused on. But because this year is very much a podcast focus, I'm thinking week by week, every 2 weeks, about what I'm going to talk about, what am I going to bring up from my life to help other people, who am I going to get on, starting coaching, finishing my PT course, like starting to help people in life get fitter and healthier, move better, lose weight, put on muscle. I've got all of these little goals now, but I've got more free time because I'm focusing on these things. I've got more mental free time to allow a lot more in. I'm not prepping this year. I might prep next year, but I've got a big year ahead of all of this space mentally where this might all, things might crop up. And I think I've just have to accept that might happen. And then it's okay. But it really shook me this weekend. I was like, yeah, okay, maybe you're not 100% healed. But will I ever be? Will I ever heal after something like that? Does it truly ever get better, or does it just become something that gets marginally easier to deal with year on year? Is it going to be a case that 10 years down the line, when it comes up to the anniversary of his death, I just go, oh crap, here we go again. I'm thinking of this. Oh, I've done this. This song's come on. Maybe that's the case. Maybe these are all like little triggers that, bring these emotions on. But I think it's important to have people around you that understand what you've been through. It's not that they have had to have gone through it with you, but they understand it. You've expressed that to them because you feel safe to do so. And they're there to just enable you to feel a certain way. They allow you that safe space to grieve, to pour onto them, to get your emotions out. I think you need people. I had a real heart to heart with my mate in the car on Friday after we finished gym. And it was special. It was sad, but it was special. Those moments where you just sit and think like this, we'll look back on this in 20, 30 years time and be like, we needed that. That was a real big bonding moment where we just connected and both almost mentally said to each other, like, yep, I've got you. I've got you. You've got me and I've got you. If we ever need this again, this is our safe space. It's like, you look at that situation and be like, yep, that car, that chat, that was our safe space. I got stuff out and I felt great for it. So did he. And it then allowed me to go home and just be comfortable with myself to grieve for the evening. And I needed it. I just needed that time on my own mentally, just to sit downstairs, cry and talk out loud and just get things out in the open. And it sounds weird, but it helps, talking out loud, talking to yourself. They say talking to yourself is a sign of going mad. I think I'm already there. They don't actually. That's just, yeah. I don't want to get cancelled, guys. Like, this guy said this. So yeah, I'm really intrigued to see what people's experiences are with loss and grief, and what you do or what you have done to get through these moments. How do you allow these emotions through? How do you deal with them? How do you deal with them? How do you process them? Do you allow yourself space? Do you allow yourself time to mental time off, where you're like, yeah, I just need to think about those things for now? Do you shut them off and say, no, absolutely not, need to crack on, or need to, not think about that? Or is it a case that you get to a certain point in your life and you're like, that's kind of gone out of my head now. I know my dad, or your mum, whatever. I know that person. I loved them, had great times with them, but nothing crops up now. Like, I don't think about these things. Could talk about them freely. I don't get emotional, because I don't think it will ever be a case that I don't feel something, if that makes sense. And I'm sure most people won't, but I'm not saying I'm going to cry every time I think about him, because obviously I haven't. But will it get to a point where, I don't listen to a song and get goosebumps and start crying because of what those memories meant to me and those moments meant to me? Or will I just be like, oh, lovely, anyway? It's weird, isn't it? I think grief and loss is different for everyone. We all process things differently. Like, heck, my nan, I think, lost her husband. I never met my grandfathers. She lost her husband when he was about 51, I think, to lung cancer. And she's been without him ever since. She's never been with anyone else. So you're talking, she's it's about 32 years she's been on her own. She's in her 80s. So that's mad. And I know I've spoken to her over the years, and she'll have moments. I remember when I was younger, I used to play their videotapes when they'd been on holiday and that, and she'd have to leave the room because that would bring back memories of them being on holiday together, hearing his voice. So that must be, and that, she would have been in her 60s then. So that would have been 15, 16, 17 years on. Maybe not even that much. It might have been when I was really young, so 10 years on. So that was probably quite fresh. But I think even now she has moments where she thinks about him, but I don't notice her crying loads. Maybe she has moments on her own. But heck, I think everyone's different. And I wanted to get this out there to show you that I'm still dealing with the loss of my dad. I still struggle. I still feel. I still shed emotions. I'm not perfect. I'm not fully put together. I'm still trying to figure out this crazy life. And these big knocks and things like this, I wouldn't even call them setbacks, but these big knocks, I don't even know just big situations and things that happen in life to you. It all changes us. We all grow from these things. My whole perception on life changed after Dad died. I realized that it could be taken from you like that. And suddenly you're like, oh, why am I even stressed about what people think of me? And I know I've spoken about that before, but why am I stressed about what people think of me, what I do in life? This is my journey, and it can end very quickly. I've seen it, it puts things in perspective for you, but it also knocks you emotionally. And I'm not recovered. I know that. I've got a while to go. I've got a way to go, I should say. But I wanted to get this out there and make sure that, I'm allowing you to see these sides of me, these things, these stories, because I want you being the listener and the viewer, I want people that are watching these to feel connected to these podcasts and understand that you're not alone in the way you think, the way you let your emotions out, the way you talk, what you think. Yeah, basically, I'm just saying, I don't want us to feel alone. And I feel like if I've seen something like this after Dad had died, it probably would have helped me, know that I'm not going to forget certain things. The things will crop up. It's a journey of just learning to deal rather than getting over. But it just gets easier. It's just something that gets easier to live with and process over time. And I don't actually think that 3.5 years is, that's not a long time really, I suppose, out loud. It's still quite fresh when you put it that way. I was saying that for years, but haven't really hit 4 years yet. That's in October. So it's still relatively fresh. I say 3.5, it's soon, isn't it? But so yeah. And I think it's different per person, isn't it? We all deal with things slightly differently, and that's absolutely fine. So yeah, I hope that there's been people out there that have resonated with this one, and I hope that this shows, again, that raw, deep side to me. There's a lot of things inside my head that I want to try and get out on this podcast to help people, and I'm still learning how to in the best way. And that's why I'm trying to do these podcasts in, one takes where you're seeing me, full with emotion, fully, being vulnerable on the mic, on the camera, and I want there to be just this sense of like we're connected, through this, and you can get something from this. I think if I'd had this, I'd have felt much more comforted, I should say, going through certain things in my life. So yeah, takeaway is I'm not healed. I'm still dealing with loss. If you are, please do reach out to me and let me know how you deal with it. How do you allow these things to pass through? How do you cope with them? You're not in this alone. I'm still going through it. Losing my dad was the hardest thing in my life. Things like seeing mum get diagnosed with cancer were absolutely fucking horrendous. But losing a parent, just like if I were to lose my mum, those are the types of things that take a long time to process. And I'm still processing it. Effectively losing my dad and losing my best friend. So it really does pain me that I can't have conversations with him. But I do hope in some weird way, or whatever, you believe in and people believe in, I do hope that he's watching over me in whatever way he can. And even if he's not, and that's not a thing, I'm still going to tell myself that. Or maybe I can communicate with him through music, things like that, or have those moments where I feel comforted because I know that was something between the two of us. Inside jokes, things like that. So I think that's how you get those moments of comfort, don't you? That make you think back to these people and the situations and the memories you had. So yeah, it's a crazy old life. It really is. And it's still, I'm still figuring it out. I'm still learning. I'm still coping, learning to cope. Still finding my way in life. But yeah, it's a crazy life. And I really hope that the Spotter, if it does one thing, it teaches us all how to show our emotions, and I suppose do so through talking to each other. So let's hope that this is a safe space for people to do so and to listen and then feel like they can with other people. I think this has the legs to be a very special space. And if you feel compelled to come on and share a story that can help other people, please do. I know it'll take a lot, but I really do feel like if we can all open up a little bit more, it will go a long way in helping us all in our own mental health journeys, because we're all battling something. We're all going through something. So if we can all go through it together and help each other, the world would be a much better place. It really would. I believe that anyway. So let me know in the comments what you think. Send me your questions. Send me your DMs on Instagram. If you want to come on, just pop me a question. See, we're done. Just send me a message, basically. Reach out to me. I'm here for anyone that needs to talk about anything. And if you want to jump on the podcast, you want to do this, hopefully help people, just let me know, because I would be more than happy to have anyone on that's got something to share. So yeah, that is today's one. I really hope it was a helpful one and a comforting one to some people as well. So yeah, raw, it's the truth, it's me. This is why I started this podcast, and I will continue to do ones like this to show you what I'm going through, what I have gone through, and we can all go on this crazy journey together through life and spot each other, not just in the gym, but in life. Thank you very much for listening and joining, watching, wherever you're watching. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one. Excuse my really ropey voice. Take care.